Another perspective now from a former government advisor and former Canadian ambassador for disarmament to the UN. Peggy Mason is now president of the Rideau Institute, a research and advocacy group. When Chrystia Freeland spoke in the House of Commons in the spring of 2017, she laid out a foreign policy agenda. And one of the things she said was, this is what Canadians do. We step up. In your view, has Canada stepped up?
In a word, no, most regrettably. I mean, I think the language was, the rhetoric was very, very welcome. The declared direction of Canada's foreign policy under this government, the full-throated support of multilateralism, of a rules-based international order, of strengthening of the UN system, I think was most welcome. And I think there is, in fact, a very long tradition prior to the previous government under both conservative and progressive conservative and liberal governments of doing that, of working hard to build up the international system, to strengthen it. But this government has not done that.
In what way? Where would you say they've stumbled?
Well, I mean, it's hard to know where to start, but perhaps if we just take the phrase rules-based international order, because that's a phrase I think that our foreign minister uses more often than not. A rules-based international order, of course, the crowning aspect of that, and Canada played an absolutely fundamental role, was the creation of the International Criminal Court, which would provide accountability. The attempt is accountability for war crimes and crimes against humanity. And Canada was was such a key negotiator that when the court was established, we were the first, we had the first presidency of the court, sort of in recognition of all the work that we'd done. But then you come up to the present day, and we have a situation where the latest sort of the foundational crime, if you will, is the crime of aggression, and that had been delayed and had not come into effect when in the 2000 when the court was established, or before 2000 actually, and there was a delay. Basically, the Americans negotiated a delay and then didn't join the court anyway. Unfortunately, often a tactic that they use to water down rules. But Canada played a role in actually delaying the coming into effect of the crime of aggression, slowed it down, and has made it more difficult for it to take hold among states parties. So we've gone from a shining champion, and we have not said when we're going to opt into it. I mean, to get technical, everyone hoped that all states parties would automatically be subject to the new crime of aggression unless they opted out. Canada played a role behind the scenes in reversing that, so you have to opt in. For many countries, that's a long ratification procedure. So it sounds very technical, but what it means is that we've made it much more difficult for the crime of aggression to come into effect. So we've actually gone from being one of the stalwart supporters of the court to someone that's actually working against it. So, you know,
it's not just money as far as you're concerned, it's also in terms of words and action.
It's in terms of words and actions, exactly. It's not just money, no. I mean, in many areas, and perhaps a vivid symbol of that is that, notwithstanding the fact that Canada's running for election to a non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council for 21-22, Prime Minister Trudeau did not address the UN General Assembly in this fall. I mean, it was left to, and it was very interesting, it was left to President Macron to give this full-throated defense of multilateralism that one would have expected from Canada. So he announced that he was going to be lobbying behind the scenes for a seat on the UN Security Council. But it's almost inexplicable that he would not have anything to say at the highest podium, the heads of government at the UN General Assembly, but he did not.
For the last more than several months, the free trade agreement with the United States and Mexico has taken up a lot of the air in the room. With that essentially behind the government now, one can debate whether it's done or not, but we won't go there. What do you think the government's foreign policy priority needs to be?
Well, I think we do have to, I mean, the problem is it isn't over because they still have to get it through the U.S. Congress. And so, and so the reason why that's very relevant is because I think one of the reasons why the multilateral agenda has so fallen down. And of course, I talked about the International Criminal Court. I could have talked about arms exports continuing to Saudi Arabia when it is accused of war crimes, which arguably then means that Canada is complicit in war crimes. The problem we've got is that we don't have a full-time we have not had a full-time foreign minister since Chrystia Freeland was made, when the government reorganized their cabinet after the election of President Trump, and Chrystia Freeland was made foreign minister, but maintained responsibility for Canada-U.S. trade, which means, in effect, she's the Canada-U.S. trade minister because that was the overwhelming priority. And so foreign policy did not get the attention it deserves. And if you don't have a full-time foreign minister, then a lot of complicated issues don't get the attention they need and don't get the kind of nuanced response that they need. And I frankly believe that if we had had a full-time foreign minister, it would have been out of the question that the Prime Minister would have gone to New York at the very time that the other heads of government were speaking to the General Assembly and failed to speak to the General Assembly. So it's not that what they declared they wanted to do is wrong. When the Prime Minister said Canada's back and said that we were going to work to strengthen the international order, that was welcomed internationally because it's needed. It's very much needed as a counterbalance to the kind of populism that we see, particularly in the U.S., this declaration that the international law is only for the weak. This is the National Security Advisor Bolton, and saying that, launching an attack on the International Criminal Court, might makes right. Well, if might makes right, then Canada is really in trouble. I mean, we believe in the international order and we want to work to strengthen it historically because we need it. Might makes right is not the way that Canada is going to get anything done in our interest.
Thank you very much for your insight.
You're very welcome.